It's race week, you know what that means. It's time for the Australian Grand Prix preview. Yes, hello everyone, welcome back to BaxtyB F1, and today we are going to be previewing the Australian Grand Prix. It is one of my favourite race weekends of the whole year, and for me this is when we really start to get into the swing of the F1 season. Of course, it was traditionally the season opening race, but these days it's always early on and very, very enjoyable, even though we do have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch it. Yeah, unfortunate, but of course, being in the UK, being in Europe, I am speaking from a slightly privileged position that it's one of the few races where we don't actually have to get up or at some stupid hour, but still, 6 o'clock in the morning, never ideal. Now, of course, Australia has been a staple of Formula One for many, many years. It actually joined the F1 calendar in 1985, and from 1985 to 1995, we actually raced in Adelaide, and it was the last race of the season, and it did play host to some of the more controversial incidents in Formula One history. Of course, it did play host to two wonderful title deciders in 1986. Of course, let's not forget Nigel Mansell's tyre blowout, and 1994, when, of course, Michael Schumacher and Damon Hill had a coming together. Let's put it that way. They had a coming together. Both men went out. Schumacher won the title. And in a slight twist to that tale, Nigel Mansell actually won that race. So he had a little bit of success in Adelaide. Now, in 1996, the Australian Grand Prix moved from Adelaide to Melbourne, Albert Park, which is where it has been ever since. And it is one of my all-time favourite tracks. I absolutely love Albert Park. Okay, it doesn't always give us the best racing, but I really, really enjoy it. It's always a fabulous race to watch. The first race winner at Albert Park was Damon Hill in 1996, and the most successful driver at Albert Park is Michael Schumacher, who has won on 4 different occasions. And 4 is the number we return to because we have 4 different winners on this year's grid. Fernando Alonso won in 2006. Lewis Hamilton is the only multi-time winner now on the grid. He won in 2008 and 2015. And you also had Valtteri Bottas in 2019 and of course Charles Leclerc 12 months ago in 2022. Now obviously the talk of this weekend will be once again who can stop Red Bull. But if there's hope for any of us that Red Bull may not run away with another race weekend, is that Australia is a bogey track for Red Bull. They've only won there once in their history. That was with Sebastian Vettel back in 2011. And in the turbo hybrid era, their record is appalling. They've had 2 podiums. You had Max Verstappen in 2019 finishing 3rd behind Bottas and Hamilton. And then you had Perez finishing 2nd behind Leclerc last year. Now I know what you're all going to say. I remember Daniel Ricciardo standing on the podium in his first race for Red Bull. He finished 2nd behind Rosberg, but then he was disqualified for a technical infringement. So he stood on the podium, but he didn't get to keep the result, which I understand is frustrating for Australian fans all over the place. But yeah, Red Bull will hope that they can get themselves in a position where they can win this race and get a 2nd win in Australia, and the first in 12 years, and they're definitely in a strong position to do it. I do once again think that their closest challenger is going to be Aston Martin, and in particular Fernando Alonso, and I will talk more about that in my prediction because I've done something pretty interesting with my prediction this time, and you may probably wonder where my brain's at, but you know, with Red Bull being so dominant, I like to try and do some cookie things with predictions, so I'm not just predicting the same thing over and over again. Now, of course, it would be remiss of me not to mention Mercedes at this stage, and it seems to me there's a little bit of tension going on between the 2 drivers, not as much as being made out by some elements of the media. Lewis Hamilton seemed to suggest that he felt that George Russell was lucky in getting a good setup in Saudi Arabia, whereas George Russell kind of countered that and said, well, no, it wasn't luck, we worked incredibly hard and knew it was the right way to go. Now, I think this is probably the media making more of this than it needs to be, but you know, considering that we're probably not going to have a title fight this year, they need to find things to pick at, and obviously 2 British drivers in one team, that's going to cause interest to say the least. Now, without further ado, let us get into the race prediction for the Australian Grand Prix. And if my record in Saudi Arabia is anything to go by, this is what will happen. I can hear some elements of the Lewis Hamilton fan base and the Max Verstappen fan base throwing things at their computers right now as I have made this prediction. For pole position, I have gone for Max Verstappen. I think over one lap that Red Bull is untouchable. I'm honest. And if you haven't seen it already, the race have done a brilliant video talking about Red Bull's DRS and how realistically it's not illegal, but they've got this trick where they are maximising every single bit of performance out of that Red Bull, and they've done a brilliant job with it. So yeah, over one lap I can't see Red Bull being touched. But the Australian Grand Prix does sometimes throw up surprise results, and most of the time that's potentially down to strategy. It could be down to weather, but I doubt that. I haven't seen the forecast, but I don't think it's going to be raining at all over the course of this weekend. Of course, I could be horribly wrong, but who knows. But safety cars are very powerful in Australia, and it's cost many drivers position. I mean, Lewis Hamilton lost 2 races because of virtual safety cars, both to Sebastian Vettel in 2017 and 2018. And that is why I'm predicting Fernando Alonso to win this race. I do think Aston are going to be the closest challenger to Red Bull this weekend. And yeah, I think if there's any driver that's going to take advantage of potential safety car shenanigans, I'm going for Fernando Alonso. But also, history is on Alonso's side. Now, of course, in the last race in Saudi Arabia, eventually we got there. Fernando Alonso joined the 100 podium club, joining the likes of Alain Prost, Lewis Hamilton, Michael Schumacher, Sebastian Vettel, and Kimi Raikkonen. Now, all of those guys, apart from Alonso, of course, have all scored more than 100 podiums. But there is a strange little quirk that became apparent that showed that when they stood on the podium for the 101st time, every single one of them did so with a race victory. So clearly, history is on Fernando Alonso's side, and that is why I'm predicting Alonso to win this race. Alongside, I think, if there's a driver best placed to take advantage of strategy and potential safety cars, it is absolutely 100% Fernando Alonso. Now, I do think Max Verstappen will be competitive in the race, and I think I'm predicting that he will finish P2. And I think in this sort of scenario that I've got going on in my brain, I'm fairly certain that Alonso is going to be challenging, or is going to be having Verstappen on his tail from the latter part of the race, I suspect. Now, in third place, I have gone for George Russell. I feel that Mercedes have got the third fastest car, and I think if there is a driver in Mercedes right now who's going to be able to take advantage of safety car conditions, Russell is the one to do it. He's more on top of that car than Lewis Hamilton. Now, please don't think for one second I'm saying that George is quicker than Lewis. He's not, overall, but I think currently George has got a better read of the W14 than Lewis does. But once Lewis gets on top of that car, like he did with the W13, I think we'll see Lewis be quicker than George. But right now, George is the best bet for Mercedes to score a podium, in my opinion. Of course, if Lewis gets that position, I will be delighted. But right now, I'm not entirely convinced that Lewis is fully on top of that car. And I know he's been speaking again about he doesn't like the fact that they're so far forward in the car compared to everybody else. So yeah, I feel that George is probably the pick right now. But of course, Lewis will be there, Lance Stroll will be there, Checo Perez will most certainly be there, as will the Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. I was actually debating between Russell and Leclerc for that third spot, but I have plumped for Russell on this occasion. Now, that is the end of the predictions, but I do have a little bit of housekeeping before I close out this video. Now, as some of you may know, some of you have discovered me through Twitter and Twitter Spaces. However, I will not be around as much this weekend. The race review will go up on Monday as usual, but I won't be as active and interacting with you guys as much as I would like. Because I may have mentioned this before, I don't know, but I am a professional opera singer and I have a gig this weekend, and understandably that has to take up my main focus. I know the races are early in the morning, but I have to focus on that. And obviously the day after the gig on Sunday, I'm going to be very, very tired. I will try and catch the race live if I can, but it's very possible that sort of I might still be asleep due to adrenaline coming out of my body from the gig. It's one of those things, one of those things that you do as a singer. But yes, if you have watched my videos and you maybe want to go and interact with other fans, then I want you to go over to Rory Talks F1 on Twitter. Rory and I have been hosting and co-hosting spaces together for the last couple of weeks. Rory's been hosting spaces on Twitter for ages, I think for a couple of years now, and honestly his spaces are fantastic. They're a great place just to meet other F1 fans and just talk, and you can get your opinion across. He covers almost all the teams, and I think it's a really wonderful place just to meet like-minded people within the F1 space. So I'm going to leave a link to Rory's Twitter in my description. And guys, that's it for today's preview. I want to hear from you. Let me know your predictions below. Obviously, I would expect most of you to probably say Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, and if I get 20 million comments of that, then absolutely fine. But I want to hear from you. I want to know what your prediction is for the Australian Grand Prix. And if you want to see any more BaxtyB F1 content, then please do hit the subscribe button below, hit the like button on my videos, because apparently the algorithm really likes that, and also bell notification, that's it. I had a brain freeze there. Bell notification, of course, so you never miss one of my videos. Until next time, guys, stay safe, and I shall speak to you all very, very soon.